Hello, I'm Sebastian Hallinsleben, Dialogue and Strategy Consultant, and this series is Management Without Elbows. The topic for today is about objectives, corporate objectives. But I'm kicking off from a very different direction, or seemingly different direction. Many of you will be familiar with a very influential report that came out a number of years ago, published by the Club of Rome. And the essence of that report essentially was, well, we're in big trouble, oil will run out in the 1990s, there's a similarly dire picture for other natural resources, it's all going downhill. As I said, that report was very influential, and follow-up reports in later years were quite influential too. The question is, why did people take it seriously? Because there is no shortage of doom and gloom mongers and people predicting dire versions of the future. But people took that particular report of the Club of Rome very, very seriously. Why? Well, the thing is that the conclusions that they published, those series and dire-sounding conclusions, were only the end, or the end result, of something much more important, and that actually formed the core of their work. What the Club of Rome did was they created a model, a mathematical model of how the world works, how the economy hangs together, how the economy and the environment interact, how natural resources fit into that picture. So the Club of Rome said, hey, we've created this model of how the world works. This is our step one. And if we feed the available data into that model as a step two, the model predicts a nice future if we do X, and nasty consequences, i.e. oil runs out and so on, if we don't do X or we do Y or something else. And it was that two-step approach, one, creating a model of how the world works, and two, checking out the model to see what it actually predicts in certain circumstances. It's that two-step approach that made the Club of Rome so influential. Without it, the report would have been irrelevant. It's quite obvious. Unfortunately, many organizations, maybe even most organizations, spend a lot of effort on a quarterly and yearly exercise that is very similar to an irrelevant approach. They set objectives. And in a nutshell, a corporate objective simply goes like this. Our reward system, our remuneration system, predicts a nice financial future for you if you do X, or financial oblivion if you do Y or something else. This is very similar to step two of the Club of Rome approach, but it's only step two. While the Club of Rome realized that it is pointless to argue over economic and political changes unless there is agreement about the underlying mechanics that determine and predict the effect of such changes, the people designing corporate objective systems simply neglect that step. In a corporate environment, we accept that kind of pointlessness. We accept that objectives are essentially a hacking effort. What is agreed as the target? New sales of 10 million, 12 million, 50 million? A customer satisfaction score of B+, or maybe B-? Staff turnover below 8%, or 6%, or oh, well, let's just settle on 7% instead and put that into the objective statement. That's how it works. We skip discussing and agreeing on the model. So the mechanics that determine whether an individual's actions have a positive or negative impact on the organization don't feature in the objectives discussion, and that's a bad thing. Take a system administrator. I'm in IT, I've got an IT background myself, so that example is close to my heart. Take a system administrator tucked away in a server room somewhere. How does the company benefit or suffer from his actions? What impact has the flexibility of the infrastructure that he creates? How about response times, collaboration with other departments? In what ways does this system administrator's work, for example, affect the success of the sales force and hence turnover and hence the bottom line? Or take a COO. Keeping the business running smoothly and efficiently is her responsibility, and the more smoothly and the more efficiently, the better. But it would be rather limiting to try and squeeze smoothly and efficiently into numerical benchmarks. It is much more useful to understand, or in other words, to create a model of how exactly she influences the success of the company. The value of setting objectives lies in brainstorming and agreeing on the model. This is the foundation for genuine commitment to an organization, not meeting artificially smartified targets. You can even take a salesperson, kind of the epitome of, oh, we set objectives. Accrued sales objectives would go like this: sell at least 50 million of product X in the Asian market. But a proper model of how that salesperson impacts the well-being of the company could include aspects that go well beyond that crude objective. For example, how does the company's profitability depend on the timing of the sales? Think of liquidity, reporting periods, credit rating impact of turnover volatility, etc., etc. Which role does the stickiness of the client play? How relevant is the fraction of repeat business? What are the limits of growing one particular account? Which part of the company loses sleep when one account gets too big? Maybe the finance director fears that the health of the organization hinges on a single client. Maybe the customer services department worries about having to cope with large spikes of works. Maybe the compliance officer worries about some regulations, and so on. So the situation is complex, but if there is consensus over the model of how the individual impacts the organization, then the actual objectives become a side issue and very, very easy to note down, almost as an afterthought. And there's another benefit. Understanding the model, the mechanics of impact on the organization, allows people to react intelligently to problems and also to opportunities that weren't even anticipated many months earlier when the objectives were set, which is another big drawback, in particular for yearly objectives. We can choose, and I would encourage you to choose, to see objectives as much more than a crude remuneration contract. Treat objectives as an exercise in communication. That's a much more powerful approach. And when we take a leaf out of the approach that the Club of Rome took for their influential report, then objectives work like this, again in 2 steps. Step number 1, here's a model of how you, the employee, impact the organization. Step 2, the model predicts a nice future for the company and hence a financial reward for you if you do X. It's worth keeping the Club of Rome in mind at the beginning of the next quarterly or yearly review cycle, and I would really encourage you to do that. I'm Sebastian Hallensleben, Dialogue and Strategy Consultant, and this series is Management Without Elbows. As ever, I'm curious about your views, so please comment, subscribe or connect. Thank you.